energy really the safest option for power? Nuclear energy may seem like one of the best options for producing electricity, but critics warn its radioactive byproducts pose serious dangers to both humanity and the environment, from contamination of oceans to catastrophic reactor failures. Many experts fear that another disaster like Chernobyl or Fukushima nuclear disaster could happen again, with devastating consequences. Nuclear energy has existed for more than 60 years, and during that time, the world has experienced 3 major nuclear disasters: Chernobyl, Fukushima, and 3 Mile accident. One of the clearest examples of the dangers of nuclear contamination comes from Fukushima. Before the massive earthquake and tsunami struck in 2011, concerns already existed about radioactive waste entering the ocean. After the disaster, those concerns grew worldwide. According to BBC, that's despite China slapping the ban on Japanese seafood and protests in Japan itself and South Korea. The contamination didn't just affect the marine ecosystem, it also disrupted food supplies and international trade, proving how radioactive waste can create economic problems far beyond the site of the disaster itself. But perhaps no nuclear accident in history has left a greater scar than Chernobyl. On April 26, 1986, Reactor 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded. Soviet officials attempted to hide the disaster from both their own citizens and neighboring nations. Residents living nearby were never warned about the deadly radiation heading towards them. Other European countries only discovered the leak after detecting abnormal radiation levels in the atmosphere. The consequences were catastrophic. Cancer cases increased, birth defects became more common, and entire cities were abandoned because of the radioactive contamination. Investigators later learned that the reactor emergency shutdown system, known as AZ-5 button, failed because of the dangerous design flaws and cost-cutting measures. Many historians believe that the disaster exposed major weaknesses inside the Soviet Union and helped contribute to the eventual collapse. Now imagine a disaster on the scale of Chernobyl happening today, not in Eastern Europe, but in California. For this scenario, experts point towards the Diablo Canyon power plant, located between San Francisco and Santa Barbara. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, some 150,000 square kilometers in the Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine are contaminated with and stretch northward of a plant site as far as 500 kilometers. If a disaster of similar magnitude happened in Diablo Canyon, radioactive clouds could drift over Los Angeles, exposing millions of people to radiation. But experts say that the worst damage could affect California's Central Valley, the region responsible for producing more than 1/3 of the United States food supply. If radioactive debris contaminated farmland, crops, and livestock could become unusable for generations, and food shortages and inflation could follow nationwide. Millions of residents could also be forced to relocate, while long-term exposure to the radiation may increase cancer rates, miscarriages, and birth defects for decades. And the danger would not stop on land. Radioactive leakage into the Pacific Ocean could devastate marine ecosystems and seafood industry along the West Coast. So how could officials stop the spread of radiation after the reactor explosion? One possible solution would be constructing a massive protective structure known as a sarcophagus, similar to the contamination structure built over Chernobyl's damaged reactors. Although the project will cost billions of dollars, but it could prevent additional radioactive material from escaping into the environment. Still, scientists warn the land could remain contaminated for thousands of years. According to Newsweek, experts have said it would be at least 3,000 years for the area to become safe, while others believe this is too optimistic. It is thought that the reactor site will not become habitable again for another at least 20,000 years. Despite the danger, scientists and governments continue searching for safer ways to use nuclear energy. After the Fukushima disaster, Japan began developing smaller and more advanced nuclear reactors known as small modular reactors, or SMRs. According to the Financial Times, the SMR, or modular reactors, is designed to be a smaller, safer, and cheaper to build than traditional models. Hitachi is also developing an advanced large reactor, which uses less land per unit of power generated that could fit Japan's needs. These reactors are designed to be safer and more resistant to natural disasters such as earthquakes. Meanwhile, the United States has experimented with different methods in handling nuclear waste. One method involved recycling radioactive material into glass through a process called verification. According to the Chemical Engineering News, the U.S. does not currently recycle fuel. It did so in the 1960s and 70s near Buffalo, New York, in a program known as West Valley Demonstration Project. However, today most nuclear waste is stored in cooling pools and reinforced concrete containers. Coming from the same source, the U.S. does not reprocess its fuel. Instead, reactor engineers submerge the assemblies in on-site pools for a few years until the fuel cools and the radioactivity starts to fall. Some have suggested a more radical solution, launching radioactive waste into outer space using rockets. This could permanently remove dangerous waste from Earth. However, rocket malfunction could spread radioactive material across large areas during the launch if the rocket explodes. Nuclear energy remains one of the most debated power sources in the modern world. Supporters believe it provides cleaner energy and reduces dependence on fossil fuels. Opponents argue the risks of radioactive contamination and the environmental destruction and catastrophic disasters are simply too dangerous. As technology advances, one question remains. Can humanity truly control the power it has created before another nuclear disaster changes the world forever? Thank you for watching tonight's special report, and good night.